What's up everyone, I'm Jessekazam and welcome back to another Escape From Tarkov video. In this video we're going to be breaking down the new overweight system that they just added in patch 12.4 in Escape From Tarkov just yesterday as the time of this recording. They've already talked about changing it up a little bit, but it's a pretty fundamental change to how the game is played, and they don't really walk you through exactly how it works in the game. So we're going to go through that. I stream Escape From Tarkov on Twitch if you wanted to check some of the raids out live, but with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so like we said, this is a pretty fundamental change to how Escape From Tarkov functions. And whether you absolutely love or absolutely hate this change, my goal with this video is to explain how it works, what the intention is, and some of the things they've already talked about, how they're going to tweak it, and some of the implications that it has for Escape From Tarkov. So there's a few things to know before we dive into how the overweight system works. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner, they have split the stamina bars into two stamina bars, the top one being your hand stamina and the bottom one being your leg stamina. So your hand stamina is depleted by ADSing, throwing nades, melee weapon uses, stuff like that. Your leg stamina is depleted by running. They've also added a new status effect in the game called fatigue, which means if you let that bottom stamina bar, your sprint stamina bar, run all the way down to 0 and keep it there and don't let it regenerate for a certain amount of time, you get fatigued, which starts to drain your energy pretty rapidly, and you don't want that. They've also added a few other cool ways to the like the movement. Like there's a little bit of momentum. It takes a minute to get up to full sprint. It takes a minute to come off of full sprint. If you're walking at full speed and then you hit caps lock to go all the way down to your slowest speed, it takes a minute to slow down. There's a little bit of momentum, which is kind of nice. So the way the overweight system works is that there's like 3 different categories. If you're under 30 kilograms, you are underweight, you're totally fine, you have no status effects, nothing's going to happen, everything is completely normal. Right now, the 2 stops are at 30 and 70 kilograms. Now, they've already talked about moving it to 40 and 70. Earlier today, it was 30 and 60. They're going to tinker with this probably a lot. I'm going to use 30 and 70 just because that's the current information and so we can explain it. But this is the part of this that the devs will probably tinker with to dial in something that feels really good. Anything over 30 kilograms and you start to get debuffs, you start to get overweight where your movement speed will be decreased and you make more noise, stuff like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the next tier is 70. And at 70 kilograms, it's critically overweight and the debuffs are much, much more severe. So we can see right now, I have nothing going on. If I pick this up, which is a pretty light item, I do go over to 30.9 and I get the overweight debuff. Now, currently the only thing is my movement speed is decreased. So you can see the bottom left, the white dots don't go all the way up. I can't walk quite as fast, but because I'm only a little bit over, it's not that bad. And I think that's the big thing to know is that between that overweight and the critically overweight, between 30 and 70, there's like a sliding scale of how much you are affected as you add more weight. It's not just these hard stops at 30 and 70. So if I now add on this Gen 4, I take that in. Now I'm at 45 and the debuffs are much more the movement speed, fall damage, stamina drain increase, all that stuff. And I get some of those, so I'm going to make more noise. Once again, nothing crazy. The 30 to 40 range really isn't that bad, which is good to know because you can kind of function pretty normally in here. You're gonna make a little bit more noise and stuff like that, but it's not too bad. It's kind of once you start getting into the 50s where things start to get a little hairy. So we're gonna drop the tech and we're gonna pick up the raid bag and the tank battery, and that's put me at 59. So now we'll see still same things, but they've added walking will drain your stamina. So once you get up into that high 50s range, you start to feel a lot more of the effect. You see how much more my walking speed is decreased. It's pretty wild. I can only walk at about half speed. It takes me a while to get up to sprint. I'm hitting shift now, and it takes you a little while to get there. The stamina, if you look as I'm running around, my stamina will not regen while I'm walking. I have to come to a complete stop. Now, this goes back to what I'm saying. If I run until my stamina goes all the way down and I keep walking, it's not going to come back up and I'm going to get that fatigue effect if I don't completely stop and let it come back up. So you can see the higher up it goes, the more that the status effects start to kick in. Now, it's worth noting, the way the system used to work is that once you were overweight, you were gaining skill points for your strength skill. Now that there's like these different levels of overweight, the way that works is when you're critically overweight, you gain points in your strength skill. And it occurs when you're about 90% of the way there. So right now it's at 70. That's when you critically overweight. So around 63, 64 is when you would start gaining those points of stamina, or those points towards your strength experience. Let's see if we can get closer. We drop that. So now we're at 61. So same thing. The movement speed is even further decreased. I start to lose stamina while walking. It's not a lot, but I'm actually losing my stamina while I'm just walking around. So that sliding scale just kind of keeps working. And as you get closer and closer to that mark, now if we pick up something really heavy and put ourselves over the top here, now we're at 72 kilograms total. Now we get to critically overweight. Sprint is impossible. The stance height is reduced. Prone movement drains stamina, and stance blocks stamina regen. So you can see my movement speed is all the way down to the slowest it can possibly be. My character can't stand all the way up. The stance height is reduced. That's only very little. Just walking drains my stamina significantly. Standing still blocks. I can't even standing still. So just walking drains stamina. Standing still does nothing. I have to go prone in order to let my stamina increase. Moving around while prone, that is going to drain my stamina. I have to be completely still while prone to regen that stamina. So it's very easy to tell that the critical overweight, once you hit 70 kilograms, that is an aggressive debuff to your character. It is almost impossible to move around. Now, 70 kilograms is a lot. There might not be a whole lot of instances. You might have to kill a lot of people, but it's kind of right in that zone where it can definitely happen. And it is absolutely brutal. Now, there are some ways you can use stims to boost your strength and endurance skills for certain periods of time, and that can actually kind of counteract some of those things. I'm going to do a little bit more research into that and do a video specifically about that. But that is kind of how it works. It's pretty simple. It's, you're right, you know, these numbers might change. I would bet that they will, but 30 and 70, most of us are going to live between the 30 and 70 mark. And I think that's where people are trying to figure out how this is going to work out, because it seems really easy to go over 30 with a standard kit. So a lot of people are going into raids overweight. You definitely can make it happen. I was running this kit earlier with a beta bag and the tac tech. So the tac techs are pretty light for what they offer. The beta bags are pretty light. And even with this M4, I can go into a raid without any debuffs whatsoever, with meds, with grenades, with backup stuff in my kappa, which the your secure container and what's inside it does count towards your weight. So a kit like this is pretty nice. It's and it doesn't do any debuffs at all. As soon as I start picking stuff up, though, as soon as I start picking up loot from my enemies, even scavs, that's when I start to get that effect. So that's where be patient with the devs as they, you know, figure everything out. But that's where most of us are going to live, and that's where most of us are going to feel the effects of that, is that it's really easy to get to that 40 and 50 mark. And that's when you're really going to start to slow your character down. It's going to be harder to sprint. And the big thing is when you have to stop completely or go prone to regen your stamina. So we've already seen new metas like people dropping their backpacks in the beginnings of fights so they can be mobile again. People, a lot more of dropping their own gear, putting on the gear of their enemies. They get their gear back in insurance and they do stuff like that. But that is how the overweight system works currently. I hope that cleared things up, answered some questions, and helped you kind of understand what's happening when you're in your raids in Escape from Tarkov. Thank y'all so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If I missed anything or if you have questions, please drop a comment down below. Also, drop a like if you like the video and think about subscribing for more content like this. I'm always trying to help shorten the learning curve of Escape from Tarkov and get you into your raids having fun as soon as possible. Thank you again for stopping by, and I'll see y'all on the next one.